Hello and welcome to the Jazz Ranch. I'm your altar dominant ego man. And greetings. I'm here to take over for the KH because he had surgery recently and he's recovering from getting his pinky finger straightened out in his right hand. So anyway, I want to tell you a little story about the KH back in the old days. Anyway, when he was younger, he had the opportunity to play with the great Clark Terry, one of the greatest trumpet players of all time. Clark Terry played, of course, with Count Basie, Duke Ellington, and Oscar Peterson, everybody. Anyway, he was coming into town from New York City to play with a local house trio, and KH was leading the trio, and this was in New Haven. Anyway, Clark Terry was late, and the place was packed with people, and they were waiting and waiting, and so the trio played a few numbers, and they were still waiting. Then all of a sudden, they heard this sound out in the lobby of the hotel, and it sounded like this. Beep. Dip, it was Clark Terry playing Bye Bye Blackbird, and he came marching into the room, and the whole place erupted into this huge applause, and they all gave him a standing ovation. It was this great moment. And anyway, that's what hello, wait a minute, now the KH is showing up. I'm sorry. He didn't want me to tell you that story. Sorry. Welcome to the Jazz Ranch. I'm sorry about the author dominant ego man. He always gets here ahead of me, and he created a preface, and I wouldn't have told that story, but he did, and it's actually a true story, and it was a very interesting experience for me. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll forgive him for that. And you may be asking, well, why am I wearing the dark glasses? Well, because someone told me I'm a dork. So I have to live up to that reputation, and I told him I graduated from the Dorky University with a master's degree. So that's why I wear the dark glasses, and they don't fit right. I'm sorry. But anyway, I'm going to be doing something continuing with the series on requests. I know you send me a lot of requests, so this is one you've asked for, which is for a song by James Van Heusen called Darn That Dream. Now, it's going to be in two parts. The first part is going to be just playing the song and then talking about the techniques. And it'll be a download for free, so you can download it and study the techniques. But then the second part, maybe more interesting, will be about improvisation and talking about the scales and how to improvise off of different scales and how to figure out the scales for the song. So here we go with part one of Darn That Dream. starting out, this is an advanced arrangement. In other words, it's something for more advanced players or intermediate anyway. But even beginner levels or intermediates can learn something from this from the point of view of like creating a good introduction, then playing the song through, and then creating a good ending. So now for the introduction, I use something a little different. We usually use some kind of a progression, a 1-6-2-5 or a 3-6-2-5, leading into the 1 chord. Now we're in the key of G, right? So that would be B minor, E7, A minor, D7 would lead us into G. But what I did was I did a cycle of fifths into the tritone substitute of the 5 chord, which would be A flat 13, and then letting that resolve down a half step to the 1 chord, which is G major. Now, so taking it back, let's see, if that's the tritone substitute, go back to its 5th, that would be E flat. Going back to its 5th, it would be B flat, and going back to that, its 5th would be F. So you might want to study that from the cycle of fifths. So let's look at it now. So F, and I played 6/9 voicings, like root, 5th, 3rd, 6/9, going to B flat, that's F 6/9, going to B flat 6/9, going to E flat 6/9 through the cycle of fifths, taking me to A flat. Now in the A flat, I made it a 13th chord or a dominant chord because I want to pull to that G. I use this melody line, which leads me nicely to the first note of the melody, which is a D. So 13, then a half step above the melody there. So there you start the melody, like that. So that's the introduction. Now we'll go to step 2, the first 8 measures. For the first 8 measures, I'm using basically spread voicing. So that involves, you want to study my videos on that, that involves root and 7th in the left hand, and then the melody note with harmony added. So like I'm adding a 9th here and a 3rd. And then on the next note, rather than just letting it sound like that, I'm going to like play another chord in there. And then so it's G major, then it goes to B flat minor 11, right? So that's still the same thing, to an E flat 7 there, and then the 2 chord here. Now this chord is interesting. It's a B7 with and that's how the melody was written, with a flat 5. So now here, getting in, that's going to lead me to the 6th chord or an E minor. So what I do is I use a diminished approach and a drop 2. Now this is advanced, but what it means is basically I understand that I can use a diminished chord there to approach the E minor, which is the 6th chord, like that. So what I do is I think of the chord as a right hand voicing like that, and then I take the 2nd note from the top and I put it down in the left hand. It creates a really pretty sound. So it sounds like this. So there's your drop 2 for the E minor. The D sharp diminished into the E minor. Now this is the next one that's really interesting, and that's dissonant there, right there. The melody note is a G sharp, but it's really an A chord in first inversion, like, but it resolves immediately. So they call that an appoggiatura in classical music, meaning a dissonance. You could like make it non-dissonance by putting a diminished chord there if you want, like that. But I don't mind that. And this next one is rather dissonance too, but it's a C minor major 7. Now we haven't seen much of that, but it's a C minor 7, but we raise the 7th. So I usually play a voicing of root and 6 there when I have that. So it sounds like this. What helps is to have these close voicings. In other words, there's not much movement. You know, like, meaning that this voice moves to there, this voice moves to there, and this one stays the same. So, and this voice moves to there. So there's very little movement there, and that's what makes it sound like have continuity or glue. they connect, like down to here, resolving down to that B minor half diminished chord now. Now what I do here is, this is the 3 chord, but it's half diminished, meaning that it has a flat 5 in it, right there. So it's dark. It's the 3 chords going to lead to the 2, so it's darker. And then I do something here. Then I do an upper extension here, a rootless voicing. Now that's a sharp 9. Now this is a Bill Evans type of chord. He uses this a lot, the sharp 9. Now how do you voice it? Root, 3rd, 5th, 7th. Now put it in first inversion, and now find that sharp 9. Root, flat 9, 9, sharp 9. So it's up there. You could play it with the right hand, but I like playing that with the left hand actually myself. And then I create some harmonic movement there, so it's not just staticky. And then here we now, chords. Now that's kind of like a drop 2, which usually is harmonizing the melody. So this harmonizes the melody in 10ths actually. Like that. Connecting note. And there's your double diminished, and that's another topic that I won't go into right now. It's 2 diminished chords stacked. More like, now this is a very common to Bill Evans technique of using the left hand arpeggiated like this. And I have this. Okay, now this is the first ending, and rather than using 2 5s like that, I'm going to use tritone substitutes. Those are tritone substitutes. If you want to study my previous tutorials on that, taking us back to G. For the second A, I want to do something different. I just want to repeat the same thing I've done already. That would be not interesting. So I try to embellish the melody, like with some phrases mostly in the right hand. Then embellish it instead of just being straight like that. Or maybe something like this. Right? Like that. So it's notes that lead into those central notes of the melody. Like this. Or like that. It's within the scale of the chord. See, like that. You have to be able to hear that scale of the chord to do this really well. Second time it's varied. There we go. B minor now to B flat minor. Something like this. Now this is a typical turn that's used in jazz a lot. Instead of it just being, it's now. That's a basic lick that is very common in jazz, to do that kind of a turn. Above the note, down to it, then below it, and back to it. So that's what it is. Okay, so now we'll move to the next step. Moving into the bridge, we want to create some drama. So it moves from the key of G into the key of E flat. So it's going down a major third. So now we can create some drama just by creating dynamics. And this is a good thing to know no matter what level you are, beginner, intermediate, or advanced. So what I did was I resolve it here, then I do an approach, which is drop 2. And then the 5 chord of the new key, which is E flat. Then I try to make this a little bigger sounding. There's a drop 2 again. That's good to know when to use it. In other words, you use it economically, but it sounds really good at certain times. Like that, it sounds good. Now here's some fourth voicings. How do we know that? Root, fourth, perfect fourth, major third. It's a great sounding chord. There's another one there. Slightly different, but still a fourth voicing. Fourths there, augmented fourth here. Now the two. Now here we have some tritone substitutes. 2-chord tritone substitute into the B flat, the 5-chord tritone substitute into the 1-chord. Diminished chord here. Here's the 3-chord in minor. Now I'm doing this minor progression with the 5th here. 5, augmented 5th, 6, 7th, like that. Keeping the harmonic motion going. A minor, the 2-chord to the 5, but now the 5 has a dense harmony. It has root, 3rd, 7th, 9th, sharp 11th, 13. Then here's a 2-5 chromatic though. Very hip song like that. That's the 3-chord, but flatted. And these are chromatic 2-5s to take us back to G. Okay, so now we'll continue with the last section. The last 8 measures of the song, I'm going to try to build it over the course of the arrangement. So I'm going to go up into the upper octave there and then try to create more sound using octave approaches like this. I'm using octaves, even though the finger is still healing. The octaves give it a bigger sound. So you're trying to get a bigger sound to get to the end. Then we can move down to the end here. Little pause there now. The bookend here of the beginning and the ending being the same. And then like that. So they match each other. So you bookend the beginning and the end of the song. So now we'll wrap up. That's it for part 1 of this particular video. Now in the next version we will be talking about improvisation and all the scales you can use. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please write to me in care of the Darkey University. And I will see you next time. And until then, I'll say in the words of my great friend Hermie Dressel, God rest his merry soul, swing loose, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.